The old coal mining community of Blossburg is located in the northwest section of Jefferson County, Alabama, some 15 miles northwest of the city of Birmingham. The origins of coal mining in the Blossburg area date back to the early 1880s, involving Colonel John T. Milner, who at that time was operating his coal mines located at Coburg that were situated some 5 miles southeast of present day Blossburg. Colonel Milner, who had begun purchasing thousands of acres of undeveloped land to the northwest along the areas of 5 Mile Creek that he had previously surveyed, held several rich untapped coal seams slated for future development. These coal seams were situated in the southeastern area of the Great Warrior Coalfield. At that time, there was no rail line operating through this area. His own company, the Milner Coal and Railroad Company, had recently completed its own 9 mile rail line running from Coburg to North Birmingham to transport coal to the furnaces. In 1883, the Richmond and Danville Extension Company purchased the Milner Coal and Railroad Company, which included the thousands of acres of undeveloped property to the northwest of Coburg. The Richmond and Danville Extension Company had been formed by the Richmond and Danville Railroad to purchase and develop land for the completion of the Georgia Pacific Railway that would eventually operate from Atlanta, Georgia, through Birmingham onto Columbus, Mississippi, with its terminus at Greenville, Mississippi. Along with this acquisition, the Richmond and Danville Railroad would also ensure a steady supply of coal for their locomotives, including those of the Georgia Pacific Railway. By November 1883, the Georgia Pacific Railway had completed and opened their new line from Atlanta to Birmingham while continuing to Coburg. Major Edward M. Tutwiler, who was then Assistant Chief Engineer of the Georgia Pacific Railway, was put in charge of the company's newly formed Coburg Coal and Coke Company to expand coal mining operations and construct new batteries of coke ovens. Major Tutwiler, who at that time knew very little about coal mining, consulted with some of the best experts of that period in the Birmingham district to increase his knowledge on the subject to improve operations. The initial section of the Georgia Pacific Railway line was eventually completed from Birmingham to Columbus, Mississippi in 1887. In 1887, Birmingham-based Sloss Iron and Steel Company, having followed the increased coal mining developments in this region, purchased the Coburg Coal and Coke Company along with all of its holdings and property. Major Tutwiler was retained as superintendent of the mines to develop additional coal mines and camps in the new areas. Beginning in late 1887, Major Tutwiler would begin initially surveying for the development of new coal mines and camps to the northwest along 5 Mile Creek, which the railroad paralleled on the former property that Colonel Milner had years before selected for future development. The first mining camp to be built between 1888 to 1889 was located near Brookside. Following Brookside, a series of new mines would be developed a short distance to the west of Brookside, located at Cardiff and later Brazil. The Georgia Pacific Railway built new spur lines to service the new mining camps that were located on the north side of 5 Mile Creek to the east of the Jefferson Tunnel. In addition to the new spur lines added, the Georgia Pacific would also eventually erect new combination style passenger and freight depots at Brookside and at Cardiff. During the same period, Major Tutwiler proceeded to have the Georgia Pacific Railway build a 2-mile branch line originating near the southeast entrance of the Jefferson Tunnel that was situated along the north side of 5 Mile Creek. This new line, when completed in 1889, was nearly 2 miles in length, running south along the twisting and curving route of the creek to the new mining camp of Blossburg. The branch line became known as the Blossburg Branch. From the Blossburg Branch, multiple branch and spur lines would be constructed to other areas that would be developing coal mines. Major Tutwiler began developing several new coal drift mines on the Pratt coal seam to the west and south of the Blossburg branch line, with Georgia Pacific Railway constructing additional rail lines to service the new mines of the Sloss Steel and Iron Company. During this period, Major Tutwiler, having become more accustomed and experienced in coal mining operations, began personally purchasing large tracts of property to the east and south of the Blossburg branch line. Also, in this period, the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company had been purchasing large tracts of undeveloped coal property just northwest of their ever-expanding Pratt coal mining operations that were so aptly named for the Pratt coal seam. TCI would end up purchasing most of the property around Blossburg that would be located to the east and southeast of the main branch line, with the exception of a large tract of property located just north of present-day Adamsville that Major Tutwiler had already personally purchased. In 1891, Major Tutwiler resigned from his position with the Sloss Iron and Steel Company to go into business for himself by forming the Tutwiler Coal, Coke, and Iron Company in 1893. The Sloss Iron and Steel Company during this time had been increasing development of its coal mines in West Blossburg around the area known as Sleepy Hollow. Some 150 beehive-style coke ovens had been constructed along with the completion of a brand new 400-ton Robinson Ramsey coal washer. The coke oven batteries and coal washer were situated at the end of what became known as the Sleepy Hollow spur line. Sloss would later place a number to each mine, numbering from 1 to 10 and so on. 2 slope mines would also be opened at West Blossburg, with nearby drifts connecting with the slopes via underground passageways. By 1893, Sloss's mines at West Blossburg were averaging some 1,200 tons of coal per daily output. Sloss would later begin mining operations at East Blossburg, or Blossburg, by developing 2 additional slope mines, along with the construction of 2 batteries of beehive-style coke ovens and installing another Robinson Ramsey coal washer. Eventually, additional coke ovens would later be built by Sloss at Blossburg, bringing the total to 350 in operation. By opening up the East Blossburg mines, Sloss was able to increase daily output, averaging some 2,500 tons. Somewhere between 175 to 200 miners were employed by Sloss, working underground, with an additional 75 to 100 men working in topside positions at the coal tipples, washers, hoist houses, repair shops, livery stables, and the coke ovens. The company had opened a new commissary, a medical office, along with schools, and built over 200 homes for their employees at Blossburg. Extracted and processed coal from Sloss's mines at Blossburg, along with the company's coal mines located at Brookside, Cardiff, Brazil, and Coburg, was transported by the Georgia Pacific Railway to the company's 2 blast furnaces located at Birmingham. The Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company, whose origins date back to the Cumberland Mountains region of Tennessee before the Civil War years, was originally formed as the Sewanee Furnace Company. After the Civil War, it was reformed as the Tennessee Coal and Rail Company, centered around Tracy City in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Company officials in the early 1880s had been taking notice of the new emergence of Birmingham, Alabama, that was created after the Civil War and its potential in becoming the South's new industrial base for heavy manufacturing, with special emphasis placed on pig iron and steel production. In 1886, the company purchased the Pratt Coal and Iron Company from Colonel Enoch Ensley, who in turn was made president of the newly formed Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company that would years later relocate and establish its main office in Birmingham. Under Colonel Ensley's 3-year tenure as president of TCI, it began a massive acquisition of building of furnaces, coal, iron, and limestone properties, and active mines. Included in property acquisitions were large tracts of undeveloped coal property in the Blossburg area that had previously been purchased years before by the Pratt Coal and Iron Company. Around the period, other tracts of land containing coal seams had been purchased by Colonel John T. Milner, the Colberg Coal and Coke Company, and Major Tutwiler. In 1892, TCI would open up their first West Pratt coal mines along a spur line extension off of the main Blossburg branch line that went into a deep curved hollow. The first two mines were developed as large drifts to operate on the Pratt coal seam that averaged some 3 to 4 feet in thickness. The Pratt coal seam was prized as excellent coking coal for use in blast furnaces for the production of pig iron and later steel. It was also placed in high demand by railroads for use in steam locomotives. TCI in later years would install a Robinson Ramsey coal washer that would be located at Tipple A near the number 2 mine. There would be 5 tipples eventually installed along rail sidings that ran parallel or were connected to the Blossburg branch line extension. By 1897, the company's West Pratt coal mine's daily output of extracted coal exceeded some 600 tons. After the coal was washed and loaded onto rail cars, it was transported to one of the company's area blast furnaces located within the Birmingham district. A total of 400 miners were employed at the West Pratt mines, with an additional 30 being employed working at surface facilities such as the coal washing plant and coal tipples. Over 200 homes were built at Blossburg by TCI to house employees and their families, along with the opening of a commissary, medical offices, and schools. By 1900, the West Pratt mines were pulling some 1,800 tons daily and had opened 3 additional drift mines, bringing the total number to 5. In all, some 12 mines would be developed at Blossburg, mostly consisting of drifts, with several slopes being developed later on to follow the Pratt seam as it went deeper underground. The workings of some of the drift mines had extended so far underground that they were equipped with endless rope haulage systems for the mine carts averaging 2,500 to 3,000 feet in length. An extensive steam-operated underground pumping system had been installed to keep certain areas of the mine from flooding, with pipelines running the length of the main haulageway tunnel to the outside were transferred and discharged later into a water reservoir located nearby. The Jefferson Tunnel was located roughly 1 mile west-northwest of Cardiff Station. The Blossburg branch line split off of the main line near the southeastern entrance of the Jefferson Tunnel. In order to continue construction of their new line to the west, Georgia Pacific Railway engineers opted to have a tunnel carved out through the base of a large ridgeline that was situated along the western side of a sharp bend in 5 Mile Creek. Work began on the new tunnel in 1885 and was completed by 1886. The length of the tunnel, which was carved out by manual labor utilizing picks, shovels, and dynamite. When the tunnel was finished, it was roughly 300 plus feet in length. It is not known how many men were assigned to build the tunnel or its cost in constructing it. When Georgia Pacific Railway completed their new line from Columbus, Mississippi in 1887, there were already issues with the tunnel filling up with water at certain times of the year. This was most likely due to an underground aquifer or series of them being breached during the construction. Locals in the area began referring to it as the Fish Trap Tunnel, meaning that sometimes there would be so much water in the tunnel that a person could go fishing in there. Other commonly used names were the Cardiff Tunnel and the Blossburg Tunnel. Over the years, open culverts would be dug and maintained on either side of the rail line to keep the water flowing out of the tunnel. In addition, many ceiling and wall supports consisting of steel bars and mesh were installed over many decades in the tunnel to keep the roof and sides from collapsing. In the hot summer months, locals from the area would flock to the tunnel entrances to keep cool and have picnics, get-togethers, and meetings. The Jefferson Tunnel in later years would become the epicenter of one of the bloodiest battles fought between striking miners and the mining companies. In 1893, Major Edward M. Tutwiler, upon forming the Tutwiler Coal, Coke, and Iron Company, began coal mining operations to the east of the original Blossburg branch line on a section of property he had purchased some years before. A new rail line named the Pinkney branch was constructed by the Georgia Pacific Railway to service the first two drift mines that would operate on the Pratt coal seam. Several long minecar tramway lines were developed leading from the mine sites located in a deep hollow to the rail coal tipple. Today, some of the old Tutwiler drift mine sites are now located on sections of the Mountain View Golf Course. Over the next few years, two additional drift mines would be opened up that would eventually employ some 115 men. Major Tutwiler would also develop two sections on the property for employee housing that included a medical office, schools, and a commissary. These later became known as the Tutwiler Estates. The name of Blossburg and its origins of the name for this area are derived from a mixture of Old English and Germanic grammar, meaning a prosperous settlement. Blossburg was named by German immigrants that moved into the area for farming and later working in the coal mines. The name Pinkney is derived from an ancient Norman name of Pinkney, which originated from the Normandy area around the town of Picardy, France. Earlier origins of the name are the ancient Germanic name of Penkino. Later in America, these names were translated to English in variations such as Pinkney. Between 1900 to 1901, a motion was put forward and passed by the Alabama State House of Representatives for a charter establishing the creation of Pinkney City. along with the establishment of its own school system. The earliest recorded census record for the town of Pinkney was taken in 1910, showing a total population of 358. In 1893, the Commercial Club of Birmingham successfully lobbied the Georgia Pacific Railway to offer round trip daily service on a section of their line between Birmingham and Corona, which was located in the western section of Walker County. This was due in part to the tremendous growth in coal mining operations in towns along this section of the Georgia Pacific Railway's line. This had resulted in a steady increase in business between Birmingham and these mining towns. As a result, the new Commercial Club Express was begun in July 1893 that included Blossburg on the list of towns and mining camps that would have daily train service. In 1894, Southern Railway, which was formed by New York financier J.P. Morgan, purchased the Richmond and Danville Railroad, along with its holdings and subsidiaries that included the Georgia Pacific Railway and all of its holdings and property. By the end of the transition, beginning in late 1894, the entire Georgia Pacific Railway network was operated by Southern Railway. The Commercial Club Express trains previously established by the Georgia Pacific were kept operating for a number of years by Southern due to the high revenue returns at that time that were taking place on the line. When Southern Railway acquired the Georgia Pacific Railway, included in the inventory of rolling stock were locomotive switch engines. These smaller locomotives, often referred to as yard locomotives, were very essential for the movement of rail cars at extensive coal mining operations that were spread out with branch and spur lines that serviced multiple coal mines and companies along with their respective coke oven batteries. Southern Railway maintained locomotive switch engines at Brookside, Cardiff, and Blossburg. At Blossburg, the switch or yard locomotive would service multiple coal companies operating mines and coke ovens, along with facilitating movement of freight cars to their respective locations. Three types of rail cars in common use then were made of heavy lumber with steel and iron frame, were box cars, open rail cars for coal and processed coke, and flat cars. These cars would contain general freight, commissary supplies, mining equipment, coal, and coke. Payroll cars were handled separately and were always under armed guard when arriving at a mining camp. The switch locomotives would move empty and filled rail cars from rail sidings situated east of the Jefferson Tunnel on a bend in the track just above 5 Mile Creek, utilizing the Blossburg branch line. Mainline freight locomotives of Southern Railway would hook up these loaded rail cars for transportation to their respective destinations. At the same time, empty rail cars would be deposited on a parallel siding for the switch engine to haul back down the Blossburg branch line. This same procedure was also carried out at the Brookside mines, which had three sidings resembling a small rail yard at a bend along the main line paralleling present day Cardiff Street. One of the main duties that the express locomotive had was pulling the early morning accommodation passenger train from Blossburg to the Union Station in downtown Birmingham. After disconnecting from the passenger cars, the express locomotive would proceed to make several round trip runs between Birmingham and Blossburg, shuttling empty and loaded coal cars before returning back to the Union Station to haul the late afternoon accommodation train back to Blossburg. During the overnight hours, the locomotive engine would be used again to make additional round trip runs to Birmingham, hauling additional loaded and empty coal cars. Many times there was so much freight and passenger traffic coming in and out of Birmingham that there would be a shortage of locomotive engines. The Blossburg Express locomotive would sometimes be pressed into service for round trip passenger and freight service between Birmingham and Atlanta. One of the more interesting stories to come out of Blossburg with regards to the switch engine locomotive in use there took place in July 1899. Three individuals, two visiting from Tennessee and one local from Blossburg, attempted to steal the Southern Railway switch locomotive stationed at Blossburg and possibly take it on a joyride. It had seemed the three men had gotten into quite a drinking session at a saloon in Blossburg one night and, for unknown reasons, thought they could operate the switch locomotive. The men went to the rail depot yard and bushwhacked the night watchman while he was working on the locomotive, got on board, started the engine, and took off down the tracks. The three would be joyriders got only a few miles away when the engine broke down due to the lack of water in the boiler tank, causing significant damage to the engine. Amazing enough, after abandoning the switch engine in the dead of night, they made their way back to catch the early morning train from Blossburg to Birmingham, where the Birmingham police, after receiving an urgent telegram from the station master at Blossburg, took the three men into custody. It is not sure if the men actually ended up being convicted of the attempted theft and joyride, as evidence was lacking. In 1903, Southern Railway made extensive surveys with regards to constructing a new rail line between Ensley and Blossburg in order to facilitate a shorter, faster route to get coal from TCI's mines located at Blossburg to the company's blast furnaces, which were located at Ensley. The new line would have been built to the southeast from Blossburg, paralleling via present day Cherry Avenue to present day Forestdale Bend Road at Daisy City, where the line would proceed in a southerly direction towards Ensley. It was later determined that the cost of building this new 10-mile branch line would not be feasible, and the project was later abandoned. The Birmingham Southern Railroad was a successor of the Birmingham Western Railroad and was chartered in 1899 by the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company to operate as a separate division. The new railroad was set up as a short line industrial railroad to service TCI's blast furnaces, rolling mills, quarries, coal, and iron ore mines. The Birmingham Southern Railroad acquired trackage rights from various railroads to operate its trains on lines outside of their own rail network. One such area was at Blossburg, where the BSR secured trackage rights from Southern Railway to service TCI's mines at Blossburg. BSR coal trains would proceed past their line at Stockton, just south of Coburg, to the Coburg Switch, and proceed in a northwesterly direction some 7 miles on Southern Railway's line to the Blossburg branch, switching down to TCI's coal mines. All of this was designed to lower freight transportation costs for TCI and also to get coal transported by rail faster to its blast furnaces at Ensley. State mine reports indicate for the period ranging from 1899 to 1907 that Birmingham Southern Railroad was utilized to service TCI's Blossburg coal mining operations before reverting back to using Southern Railway. In 1895, Major Tutwiler began to develop a large slope mine located almost 2 miles directly south of his drift mining operations located near Pinkney City. The property, which he had purchased some years before, amounted to 700 plus acres. The new slope mine was to be named the Murray Number 4 and would be situated near the end of Bailey Hollow, just above the bank of Prude's Creek, which ran the length of the entire hollow. The mine would be located approximately 1 mile east from the town of Adamsville. Southern Railway was contracted to build a 2 mile extension from the Pinkney branch line to reach the new slope mine. A 300-foot long, 8-degree down angle rock tunnel was developed down to reach the Pratt coal seam, which averaged some 4 feet in thickness in the area located 150 feet below the surface. A steam-powered cable hoist was installed on the far side of Prude's Creek that would pull the loaded mine carts to the surface and then to the rail car loading tipple. A Crawford and McCrimmon fan was installed adjacent to the Manway passage to provide both intake and exhaust air ventilation into the mine. A boiler plant was also built nearby that would draw water from Prude's Creek that would provide steam power and electricity for all of the equipment both outside and inside the mine. The new Murray Number 4 mine began operations in 1896 with some 188 men being employed at the mine. Initially, extracted coal from the Murray Number 4 mine was sold on the open market as run-of-mine coal. 1897 state mine reports indicated that over 44,000 tons of coal had been extracted for that year from the Murray Number 4 mine. By 1898, 100 new beehive-style coke ovens were built consisting of 2 batteries situated side by side of 50 for each battery. A new Robinson Ramsey coal washer was erected nearby the main coal tipple. Water drawn from Prude's Creek by way of Cameron steam-operated pumps sent water via pipelines to cool the coke ovens after the coking process was finished. By this period, the Murray Number 4 slope mine had been driven down some 2,000 feet in length following the Pratt coal seam, with left-right entries branching off nearly every 50 to 75 feet. In early 1899, Major Tutwiler purchased the Vanderbilt furnace that was located just south of the Louisville and Nashville Railroad's Boyles Yard in nearby Tarrant. The blast furnace, which had been idle for some years, underwent an extensive rehabilitation process and went back into service in August of 1899. Eventually, large batteries of beehive-style coke ovens would be built adjacent to the furnace. Coal from the company's Blossburg mines was transported via Southern Railway to the Vanderbilt furnace that would go into the production of pig iron. During this period, Major Tutwiler was expanding his company by making additional purchases of coal property, especially in the western sections of Jefferson County near the Locust Fork of the Warrior River, along Short Creek. Two very well known and established Birmingham businessmen, brothers Morris and E.L. Adler, would later take a minority investment in Tutwiler's company and assist with the purchasing and development of additional property and mines, including the Songo ore mine property that was situated along Red Mountain, some 7 miles southwest of Birmingham. In total, over 60,000 acres of property were purchased, with 16,000 of those containing the valuable Pratt coal seam. The company would eventually suspend operating their drift mines at Blossburg near Pinkney City and were expanding underground mining operations at the Murray No. 4 mine by sinking an additional shaft above the east bank of Prude's Creek in Bailey Hollow. The company had also built a mining camp on the east side of Adamsville, just above Bailey Hollow and the Murray No. 4 mine, for employees and their families. During this period, the Ensley Southern Railroad, which was a joint partnership between Southern Railway and the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, had recently completed their new line between the blast furnaces at Ensley, located just southwest of Birmingham, to the Locust Fork of the Warrior River in the western section of Jefferson County. Major Tutwiler, who had purchased several thousand acres of land in and around Short Creek that emptied into the Locust Fork, began operating drift mines and constructing batteries of coke ovens and erecting coal washers. These became known as the Short Creek Mines. In 1906, Major Tutwiler, looking to retire, would sell his interest in the company to the Adler brothers for the sum of $1,680,000 at 5% in 20-year gold bonds. Converted into present-day value, that would amount to $64 million. The Adler brothers then formed the Birmingham Iron Company. The Birmingham Iron Company, which was later merged with the Birmingham Coal Company to become later named the Birmingham Coal and Iron Company. The Murray No. 4 mine was later designated as the Short Creek No. 4 mine. In 1912, the Woodward Iron Company of Birmingham would purchase the Birmingham Coal and Iron Company and all of its holdings, which included the mines and property in and around Blossburg and Murray. The Murray No. 4 mine would eventually be closed down by the Woodward Iron Company after the underground workings on the Pratt seam had been exhausted. All the surface facilities were gradually raised and equipment removed from the mine, including the disassembling of the coal washer and loading tipple. The two batteries of coke ovens were abandoned and left in place. Southern Railway would maintain this section of the branch line south of the D and E coal mines for many years as a temporary storage of rail freight cars. By 1898, Sloss had changed their company name to the Sloss-Sheffield Steel and Iron Company. Between 1898 to 1900, the company had begun to open up several additional drift mines in West Blossburg, specifically in the area of Sleepy Hollow near 5 Mile Creek, where the Georgia Pacific Railway had originally built a 1.5-mile spur line from the main Blossburg branch line that ran the entire length of Sleepy Hollow. A new, larger Robinson Ramsey coal washing plant was erected at the end of the hollow next to the coke oven batteries that would be needed to process the additional tons of coal coming from the new mines that would be developed on the Pratt coal seam. During this same period, Sloss-Sheffield was opening up their new mines and coke ovens just west of the town of Brookside near Newfound Creek. The new Sleepy Hollow drift mines employed some 200 miners not including the topside men that worked at the coal washing plant, coke ovens, and rail tipples. The new drift mines were averaging some 800 tons daily output, with the coal washer able to process around 400 tons daily through the plant. A dinky locomotive operated by Sloss-Sheffield would haul loaded rail cars from the multiple coal tipples that were situated along the entire length of Sleepy Hollow down to the coal washing plant. Sloss had to also build an additional battery of 50 beehive coke ovens that brought the total to 200 being operated at West Blossburg that could manage some 220 tons of processed coke daily for rail transport to the company's North Birmingham and City furnace. The name of Sleepy Hollow had been given to this one particular hollow by several longtime families that had resided in the area decades before the first rail lines and coal mines were ever imagined or prospected by surveyors or geologists. Two of the longest residing families, the Cash and Bivens, had named it Sleepy Hollow due to its peaceful setting, with the hollow having long, wide meadows, streams, and beautiful woods. The area had long been used by local hunters as it was rich with wild turkey, deer, and other game. The area today is still known as Sleepy Hollow. By 1908, Sloss-Sheffield opened up several additional drift mines just north of the Sleepy Hollow spur line on the nickel plate seam that averaged some 3 to 4 feet in thickness. The nickel plate seam was part of the venerated Pratt coal seam and was located at a lower elevation than the Pratt seam. Sloss had also opened up a drift mine in East Blossburg along the Pinkney branch line that operated on the Pratt seam. By 1910, many of the original drift mines that had been in operation since the late 1880s had been worked out and the coal seams exhausted. Several of the older mines had been leased out to smaller mining companies, such as the P.R. Jordan Coal Company, which would later change its name to the Blossburg Mining Company. It is worth mentioning that in the coal mining history of the Birmingham district, that probably no other area had as many coal mining companies operating within a 12 square mile area as did the Blossburg section over a period covering 70 plus years. Without the availability and access to many of the original mind maps that could provide nearly exact locations, the best that can be done is by cross referencing some of the coal companies and mines operated by utilizing township and range listings within certain areas and matching the coal seams in a general area according to detailed plat and topographical maps. Between 1922 to 1927, Sloss-Sheffield only had several drift mines open working the Pratt and nickel plate seams. The company had shut down their coke oven batteries at Blossburg when their new byproduct coke oven plant had opened in 1920, located in North Birmingham. In 1929, the company's Blossburg number 4 drift mine, operating on the nickel plate seam, was still in use. By 1930, the company had pretty much ceased mining operations at Blossburg, Cardiff, Brookside, and Coburg. Many of their mines were leased out to various coal mining companies, with Sloss receiving royalty dividend payments based on percentages of coal by the ton extracted. Located 1/2 mile southwest at the end of Southern Railway's Sleepy Hollow spur line was the community of Gintown. The name derived from it was the only location of a cotton gin mill in the northwestern section of Jefferson County. Over the following decades, many coal miners and employees that worked at Blossburg resided at Gintown. When the Sloss-Sheffield Steel and Iron Company opened up the flat top mine, Alden Manway, at the end of Sleepy Hollow in late 1928, many flat top coal miners residing at Gintown and Adamsville used this shorter route in commuting via the Alden Manway slope to get underground and go to work. Alden was also the location for Sloss-Sheffield's payroll office and commissary. In later years, the nearby Davidson coal mines employed many miners who resided at Gintown. The town of Adamsville, which was only 2.5 miles to the southwest, was serviced by the Kansas City, Memphis, and Birmingham Railroad, later to be merged into the St. Louis and San Francisco Railroad, or better known as Frisco. This provided the residents of Gintown easy access to rail transportation heading either to Birmingham or Memphis, Tennessee. Gintown was initially incorporated in 1897 as the city of Graysville. However, for many decades following, the northeast side of Graysville was still referred to as Gintown. The city of Graysville was officially reincorporated in 1945. Between 1903 to 1904, TCI began developing a series of new mines at Blossburg designed to follow the Pratt coal seam deeper underground. Blossburg A was developed on the Pratt coal seam adjacent to the West Pratt No. 2 mine and utilized the same underground endless rope haulage technique as the older No. 2 mine had. This haulage system had been adopted from the company's Pratt City mines, specifically the Pratt No. 3 slope mine, which had proved to be very successful. A total of 36 men were initially employed at the A mine. The Blossburg B mine was opened on the Pratt coal seam an eighth of a mile north of the West Pratt No. 8 slope mine and a half a mile south of the A mine along present-day Glasgow Hollow Road. An outside tramway line connecting both the No. 8 and B mines was built to the A mine coal washer and rail tipple. When loaded coal carts being pulled by mules were delivered to the outside of the B mine or were hoisted by cable to the surface at the No. 8 mine, a dinky locomotive would haul the coal carts over the tramway rail line to the coal washer at the A mine. Electric locomotives would later replace the dinky locomotive in transporting coal from the No. 8 and B mines. A Jeffries Guerball air ventilation unit would later be installed over a shaft about a quarter of a mile south of the No. 8 slope mine that would also service the B mine as well. A total of 97 miners would be initially employed at the new B mine. Some of the older West Pratt mines were converted into manway passages and or were equipped with new air ventilation units. The A mine had a new coal loading tipple built in place of the original that had been in use during the West Pratt mines period. A larger capacity Robinson Ramsey coal washer was also installed next to the new A tipple. A small rail yard was built by 1910 just to the south of the A mine coal tipple and washing plant due to the increased number of rail cars needed for the increased coal output from the new mines. In later years, the C mine would be opened up just north of the A mine to work out some of the older West Pratt mines. More than a few coal miners and their families, along with mine supervisors and foremen, resided in an area called Redwine, located nearest the B mine or in Graysville, which was just over a mile west from the A and B mines. The Blossburg E mine was opened in Bailey Hollow along Prude's Creek, over a mile north along the same branch line as Tutwiler's Murray No. 4 mine. Around 60 new homes were built for miners and their families in two areas of Bailey Hollow near the new E Drift mine. In later years, the D mine would be opened up just north of the E mine as a drift entry working the Pratt seam. A new coal washing plant was eventually installed adjacent to the rail tipple, along with several additional rail sidings laid by Southern Railway. Initially, some 39 miners would be employed at the E mine. At the new B mine, about the same number of new homes were constructed, along with a commissary being opened up just north of the A mine. By 1910, TCI's Blossburg mines were delivering, on average, 264,000 tons per year to be sold as run-of-mine coal. By 1912, the B and E mines' workings had been expanded further underground, while the A mines' underground workings on the Pratt seam have been expanded further underground to reach the property boundary lines of the Murray No. 4 mine. Some 182 miners were now employed at the B mine, while the A mine employed 45 miners. The E mine saw the biggest increase in number of miners working, totaling 221. A new mine ventilation unit powered by gasoline was installed utilizing a split system with two different air currents at the E mine. Electric locomotives would eventually replace mules in hauling coal mine carts along the long haulage ways and to the coal washer. In 1921, TCI had shut down their A, B, C, and D mines, leaving only the E mine in operation until it too was closed down by 1926 and later leased out to the Brookside-Pratt Mining Company of Birmingham. The Pratt Coal Company was formed in 1896 in Birmingham, Alabama by Thomas T. Hillman and Erskine Ramsey. Both of these men were leading industrialists and pioneers in coal and iron ore mining of the Birmingham district. Henry E. McCormick, brother of well-known mining industrialist George B. McCormick, would soon join the Pratt Coal Company as Treasury Secretary. By 1897, the company had acquired several thousand acres of land for coal mining just west of Cardiff and north of Sleepy Hollow at Blossburg. Most of the property slated for mining development was situated along areas of 5 Mile Creek. Southern Railway would build the first of two spur lines to these new mines. One at the Nebo Mines, which was located less than a mile northwest of the Jefferson Tunnel off of the main line that was situated in a long hollow where Cow Branch Creek flows down and empties into 5 Mile Creek. The other spur line to be built extended from the Sleepy Hollow spur line on the south side of 5 Mile Creek into a deep ravine situated just above the creek. This would be the site of the new Pratt mines, later to be also named the Number 16 mine. New wooden coal tipples were built at both mine sites with interconnected tramway rail lines laid to connect the drift mines to their respective coal tipples. 5 drift mines were opened and developed at the new Pratt mine site to mine coal on the Pratt seam that averaged 3 to 4 feet in thickness. The new Pratt coal mines tipple was built spanning across the ravine to accommodate drift mines on either side. At the Nebo mine, several drifts were opened also on the Pratt coal seam, averaging also between 3 to 4 feet in thickness. The coal tipple at Nebo was situated above the Southern Railway spur line that ran along the west side of the hollow and Cow Branch Creek. In 1902, the Pratt Coal Company was reorganized and chartered in Delaware. It had $3 million in working capital and had acquired 12,000 acres of coal land. By the end of 1902, the Pratt Coal Company employed some 162 miners and personnel at both the Nebo and New Pratt mines, working a total of 7 drifts. Both mines were averaging some 68,000 tons of run-of-mine coal per year. A mining camp later to be named Stumptown, where the workers resided, was situated on the south side of 5 Mile Creek, where miners and their families lived. A wooden bridge spanned the creek, providing access for the miners at Nebo to walk to work. Later, additional homes would be built up in the hollow along either side of Cow Branch Creek near the Nebo mines. New Pratt miners had access via a narrow path situated above the west side of the creek to walk to work. There were also homes built by the company that paralleled the Southern Railway spur line along the south side of the creek. Additional homes were built on an isthmus on the north side of the creek with a wooden bridge built spanning the creek. Beginning in 1903, the Pratt Coal Company would further expand their operations to the north and west of Blossburg by developing new coal mines along the planned route of the North Alabama Railroad that would run from Black Creek near present-day Fultondale out through West Jefferson and Southern Walker County to the Locust Fork of the Warrior River, just north of present-day Port Birmingham. These new mines were at Mineral Springs, Crocker Mountain, and near Littleton, later to be named the Banner Mine. When the first sections of the new line were finished in 1904, the North Alabama Railroad, which was a division of the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, turned over the line to its Birmingham Mineral Division to operate. This became known as the Cane Creek Branch Line. In March 1905, the Pratt Coal Company, Ivy Coal and Iron Company, and the Townley Mining Company were merged together to form the Pratt Consolidated Coal Company. The new company had amassed over 75,000 acres of coal mining land in the central regions of Alabama, with the new company being headquartered in Birmingham. The company's new Pratt mining operations would later be expanded to also open up drift mines on the nickel plate seam as well. By 1906, 175 homes had been built for employees and their families, while some 229 miners were employed at the new Pratt or number 16 mines, with 7 drifts in operation, averaging 197,000 tons pulled yearly. An additional coal tipple had been built just east of the main tipple along the spur line to accommodate several new drift mines being opened up on the nickel plate seam. The mines at Nebo would continue to operate several drift mines along the Pratt seam, with an average of 46 miners being employed before being sent to work at the new mines at Togo that were being developed on the nickel plate seam in the same hollow. These new mines at Togo would average 47,000 tons pulled each year. The mines at Togo would continue to stay in operation on into 1920, employing on average between 80 to 100 miners annually before being closed down. During the operating years of the Pratt Consolidated Coal Company, its executives and sales agents had positioned the Birmingham based company in being the leading supplier of railway and steamship bunker coal in the Southeast. In addition to the Pratt seam coal proving excellent for coking to be used in the production of pig iron and steel, it was also highly sought after for use in railway locomotives and steamships. Thousands of tons of Pratt coal was shipped by rail or river barge down to the primary ports of Mobile, Alabama, and New Orleans, Louisiana, almost every week. Later, the port of Pensacola, Florida, would become a large supplier of steamship bunker coal shipped down from the coal mines of Alabama for use in the burgeoning South American shipping trade. Around 1912, the Pratt Consolidated Coal Company opened up a new series of drift mines to operate on the nickel plate seam in Blossburg. These mines were to be known as the Blossburg Tunnel Mines and were located just south of the Jefferson Tunnel along a ridge line paralleling the Southern Railway Blossburg branch line that ran along a section of 5 Mile Creek. A spur line was built from the north side of the branch line trestle that went over the creek, heading up into a shallow ravine where a tipple was constructed to service the rail coal cars. 3 drift mines were developed above the end of the spur line, with each mine heading in a different direction to cover the entire ridge underground, with all 3 connected by haulage ways. A small mining camp was built nearby, parallel with the spur line, to accommodate miners and their families, with around 65 miners being initially employed to work at the tunnel mines. Of the 3 different mine sites operated by the Pratt Consolidated Coal Company in the Blossburg area, the New Pratt or number 16 mines went the furthest underground, mainly headed northwest for 1 mile or more, that branched off into additional haulage ways and work headings. The Pratt Consolidated Coal Company's Blossburg tunnel mines operated up until 1925 before eventually shutting down. The Alabama Byproducts Corporation, having been formed and chartered in the state of Delaware in January of 1920, applied and was granted to do business in the state of Alabama with over $1 million in operating capital. The new company, having set up its headquarters in Birmingham, proceeded to purchase the Birmingham Coke and Byproducts Company's new coke plant in Tarrant, which was just coming into operation. The new plant had 50 of the newest copper style byproduct coke ovens installed, which would efficiently aid in the production of many types of fuels and derivatives from coal. In order to keep a constant supply of coal streaming into their Tarrant plant, the Alabama Byproducts Corporation went on a buying frenzy by purchasing the Imperial Coal and Coke Company that had mines located to the northeast at Dixiana and Bradford. Also, the Majestic Coal Company that had their mine located at Indio near Monmouth. Both of these mines were serviced by the L&N, which made excellent business sense since the Tarrant plant was situated along L&N's Huntsville number 2 branch line and was located just north of their huge Boyles rail yard in Tarrant. Pratt Consolidated Coal Company's executives for several years have been trying to sell the company as a whole and had recently courted Birmingham based Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company as a prospective buyer, but the deal never materialized. By November 1924, after many months of negotiations, the Alabama Byproducts secured their biggest acquisition by purchasing the Pratt Consolidated Coal Company. The bulk of Pratt Consolidated's mines were situated along L&N's Cane Creek branch line, while others were serviced by the Frisco Railroad and Southern Railway, spread out over Walker and Jefferson counties. The coal mines and property at Blossburg were taken over by the Alabama Byproducts Corporation in early 1925. The company, seeing the value in keeping the new Pratt mines open and operating on both the Pratt and nickel plate coal seams, decided to invest in the construction of a new Montgomery coal washing plant to be built along the spur line just catty corner west of the Sleepy Hollow spur line. In addition, the new Pratt mines would undergo an electrification process of having the latest coal cutting equipment and electric trolley locomotives installed for more efficient haulage of the coal carts from the long underground haulage ways in the mine out to the coal washer. By 1927, there were two large drift mines in operation at New Pratt, employing a total of 114 men. This number included both miners and topside men working outside the mine. The coal extracted from the New Pratt mines would continue to be shipped via rail or by river barge down to the Gulf ports to be sold as steamship bunker coal, as previously done by the Pratt Consolidated Coal Company, as this was proven to be enormously profitable to the company. The New Pratt mine stayed in continuous operation on into 1932 when a sharp downturn in the economy affecting sales due to the Great Depression caused the mines to close down. Eventually, all the equipment was removed from the mine and facilities were razed, along with the spur rail line being removed as well. Years later, independent coal companies on lease from Alabama Byproducts Corporation would strip mine much of the outside areas of the deep ravines and areas around the New Pratt, Nebo, Togo, and tunnel mines to extract any available coal from the seams that they could obtain. In 1985, Alabama-based Drummond Coal Company purchased the Alabama Byproducts Corporation and assumed ownership of the old coal mines property in the Blossburg area. In the late spring and early summer of 1908, the United Mine Workers District 20, representing several thousand coal miners in Alabama, called for a statewide strike as part of a nationwide strike that would involve over 200,000 miners, mainly working in the bituminous coal fields of southern Appalachia, which included Alabama. This was due in part to a 17% wage scale cut across the board that many coal mining companies had adopted. Unlike many northern states that had accepted and applied the United Mine Workers' new pay scale in recognition of the UMW as a lawful representative of collective bargaining for the miners. The UMW District 20 in Alabama had been repeatedly denied statewide recognition over many years, along with a declining union membership, issued a call for a formal statewide strike on June 30th to begin on July 6, 1908. Initially, some 2,000 plus coal miners walked off the job and began to man picket lines. The number of strikers continued to rise into the thousands over a period of 1 week into the strike. Several mining companies, not wanting to see production decrease or to be halted, immediately signed agreements with the UMW to keep their mines operating during the strike. In the Birmingham district, perhaps no area was more volatile for a confrontation between the striking miners against the coal companies and government officials than the mining towns of Blossburg, Cardiff, and Brookside. The coal mines in the Blossburg area had been idle for months as the miners had initiated their own work stoppage and walkout. The miners at Brookside and Cardiff would later follow with work stoppages and walkouts. On July 17th, a special train was chartered from the Frisco Railroad by several mining companies to transport non striking replacement miners, along with some 30 deputies as guards. The special train was headed from Birmingham via the Southern Railway line that went through Brookside and Cardiff towards the southeastern entrance to the Jefferson Tunnel, where the switch for the Blossburg branch line was located. It is not known if the train transporting the replacement miners was actually headed for Blossburg or proceeding through the tunnel towards Littleton and into Walker County to another strike affected coal mine site. As the train passed by Cardiff Station, rounding a bend on the line, it was met by some 1,000 striking miners and sympathizers blocking the inside and outside entrance of the Jefferson Tunnel. Several hundred striking miners that had positioned themselves high up on the steep ridge lines to the north of the rail line and above the tunnel entrance itself were determined not to let the train proceed through the tunnel. As soon as the train's locomotive engineers slowed down near the tunnel entrance, striking miners began pouring volley after volley from their rifles and shotguns down into the train. Several deputies and replacement miners were seriously wounded by the hail of gunfire raking the entire train. News reports of that time period are vague, but according to one newspaper report is that one of the train's engineers was able to dismount from the locomotive and managed to throw the switch connecting to the Blossburg branch line, allowing the train to move off the main line near the tunnel's entrance and escape the fuselage of rifle and shotgun fire by heading down towards Blossburg. If this were true, then the train would have had nowhere to go except back towards the Jefferson Tunnel East entrance to get back onto the main line leading to Birmingham. There was only one way in and out of Blossburg by rail, and that was by way of the main branch line near the Jefferson Tunnel. Other news reports have the train escaping through the northwest entrance of the tunnel, heading towards Littleton, along with several deputies fleeing on foot also through the northwest entrance of the tunnel while being chased and shot at by the striking miners. Either way, the bullet riddled train did arrive back in Birmingham with its severely wounded on board. It is not known just how many were wounded or killed with regards to the striking coal miners and sympathizers, which is remarkable that there was no criminal investigation that took place by the police or a board of inquiry commissioned to obtain all details related to the gun battle. Alabama Governor B.B. Comer, upon hearing the news of the Battle of the Jefferson Tunnel, immediately ordered units of the Alabama National Guard and state militia that had already been prepositioned in the Birmingham district before the start of the strike to head to Blossburg, Cardiff, and Brookside. Their orders were to quell any further disturbances and restore order by any means necessary. Newspaper reports state that when the National Guard units leaving Birmingham through Pratt City on the Frisco Railroad, arrived on the outskirts of Adamsville by train. They dismounted and proceeded on foot ahead of and flanking the train as it proceeded up the line towards the depot so as to prevent an ambush by striking miners. A cavalry squadron was also sent by train to Adamsville, where they formed up with infantry units and proceeded to Blossburg, Brookside, and Cardiff. One item brought with the troops were Gatling machine guns with boxes of thousands of rounds of ammunition. From Adamsville, the military and sheriff's deputies that accompanied them proceeded north on foot and horseback up along present day New Blossburg and Glasgow Hollow Road, some 2 miles before making camp at Blossburg and beginning armed patrols. A separate train with additional military forces proceeded by rail up past Coburg towards Brookside, taking the same precautions before arriving at Brookside to make camp and begin patrols. Once the military had established camps in the Blossburg area, they began patrolling the towns and ridge lines along the Southern Railway main line, including posting guards on either side of the Jefferson Tunnel. Within 24 to 48 hours, a relative calm had settled in over the mining camps. Heavily guarded trains with replacement miners, including regular passenger and freight trains, were able to operate through the area with no further trouble. As further outbreaks of violence continued in other mining camps and towns in the northern and western areas of the Birmingham district, more guard and militia units were called in to establish order. Some state National Guard units on yearly training maneuvers at Chickamauga in southeastern Tennessee near Chattanooga were even recalled and sent by special trains to Birmingham. Within 2 weeks' time, peace was restored to the mining districts, and many coal mines were able to reopen and operate on a limited basis. By the end of August 1908, with public sympathy for the coal miners' strike waning, along with the governor clearly supporting the mining companies, union officials called off their strike, having not been able to secure almost any of their demands and to be formally recognized by state officials. All of the military units were withdrawn from the Birmingham district by the first week of September. In 1920, another statewide coal miners' strike would also take place, ending with much of the same results as in 1908. Not until the 1930s, with the financial effects of the Great Depression sweeping across the nation and the state, did the United Mine Workers District 20 obtain full recognition and a massive increase in their membership rolls. Did positive changes occur with regards to better pay, health coverage, and safety standards? The South Pratt Coal Company was formed and incorporated in May 1907 in Birmingham by Messrs. Hobson, Tuck, and Hillhouse. With an initial working capital of $10,000, they set up a small coal mining operation in the East Blossburg area on a spur line from Southern Railway's Pinkney branch line. By the fall of 1907, the company had opened two drift mines operating on the Pratt coal seam in a small hollow just east of present day Brookside Cardiff Road. Air shafts were built near the two mine entrances into the side near the bottom of the ridge. This type of air ventilation employed was called furnace ventilation, whereby a wooden or brick chimney was built directly over the air shaft. An iron grate was installed over the shaft or at the base of the chimney, whereby a stack of coal is placed at the bottom of the shaft near the inlet leading to the underground workings of the mine just off from the drift mine's main haulage way and lit on fire. The warm gases are released from the fired coal, sending it upwards and out through the top of the chimney. These warm gases draw air from the inside of the mine towards the inlet and up and out of the chimney. At the same time, fresh air is pulled in through the drift mine's main entrance, thereby creating a crude form of circulation. These type of furnaces were only used in non-gaseous coal mines, and for good reason. The furnaces had to be constantly maintained and lit while the mine was in operation. For many years, these were in use at mine sites all over the Birmingham district due to their low operating expenses, without the use of electricity generated by a steam-powered boiler plant or straight electrical lines from a nearby substation. The South-Pratt Coal Company's two drift mines employed an average of 45 men working inside and outside of the mine. The coal extracted from their mines was sold as run-of-mine coal on the open market through coal wholesalers in the Birmingham area. State mine records indicate that the company operated their East Blossburg coal mines up to 1923 when they were closed down. It is most likely that some years later, as with many of the inactive or dormant mines in the Blossburg area, that they were reopened as truck mines operated by an independent small coal company for a number of years that was never listed in state mine records or operated as a bootleg coal mine. The Blossburg Mining Company was formed and incorporated in Jefferson County, Alabama in November of 1916 by Messrs. P.R. Jordan, Robson, and Dickey. Mr. P.R. Jordan had been operating several coal drift mines in the West Blossburg Sleepy Hollow area for several years on lease from Sloss-Sheffield. The Brookside-Pratt Mining Company, which had been formed in 1911, was operating several mines at Coburg, Cardiff, and Blossburg. With mines on lease from the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company, they subcontracted several mines to the Blossburg Mining Company to operate in later years. These were the Pinkney mines operating on both the Pratt and nickel plate seams, and the Buckeye mines operating on the nickel plate seam. In 1925, state business records show that the new ownership of the Blossburg Mining Company was reverted to members of the Robson family as sole owners. 1927 state mine reports indicate that the company was operating the Pinkney number 2 and number 3 mines. No further mine information goes beyond that. Only as of present, the company still exists in business filings with the state of Alabama. The P.R. Jordan Coal Company had been operating under lease from Sloss-Sheffield, one of its former Sleepy Hollow drift mines. Now called the Jordan Mine, it was operating on the nickel plate seam since 1915. In 1917, the P.R. Jordan Coal Company's assets and property were purchased and transferred to the newly formed and incorporated Franklin Coal Company of Birmingham. The Franklin Coal Company would end up operating more than several coal mines under lease from companies such as TCI and the Brookside-Pratt Mining Company in the Blossburg, Adamsville, and Graysville areas up into the late 1960s. When the Georgia Pacific Railway first inaugurated passenger and freight service in 1890 to Blossburg on their Columbus, Mississippi to Birmingham, Alabama line, it had been very profitable in revenue. The Commercial Club Express trains that were begun in 1893 helped generate additional passenger and freight revenue, along with providing invaluable daily rail services to businessmen and the local populations of mining towns such as Blossburg. When Southern Railway acquired the Georgia Pacific Railway, that service was continued on for several more years before it was eventually phased out. By 1919, the population of Blossburg had significantly decreased in passenger traffic due to some coal mine closings in the area and new mines being opened up outside of Blossburg that offered better pay and living conditions, along with many folks moving out of the area seeking otherwise better financial opportunities to make a living. The American Railway Express Agency, that had recently opened up its Birmingham offices at Union Station and the city's newer terminal station, along with opening up outlying branches such as Blossburg, also saw a decrease in its services. The AREA was basically the FedEx of its day by railroad. The AREA would handle shipments such as partials, currency, and other high value items. Usually, a separate AREA rail car would be attached to a railroad company's passenger or freight train with an AREA agent on board. The AREA was a nationwide door to door delivery system working in cooperation with the railroads. Southern Railway's Birmingham to Columbus, Mississippi's train had an AREA car attached that would make daily pickup and deliveries to stations such as Blossburg, where the AREA office was located at the depot station. Southern Railway had first petitioned the Alabama Public Service Commission in Montgomery, Alabama, to discontinue passenger service between Blossburg and the Jefferson Junction in 1917, but was rejected due to the line being essential for the war effort during America's entry into World War I. By 1919, with the Great War over, Southern Railway again petitioned the Alabama Public Service Commission to discontinue that line of service. After many months of the petition being on the commission's docket, the case was finally approved in December of 1920 to discontinue passenger service to Blossburg. The American Railway Express Agency also received approval to close their office at Blossburg as well. The one exception to Sloss-Sheffield's decreasing Blossburg coal mining operations was the building of the Alden mining camp and facilities that were connected to the company's flat top underground coal mine. In 1928, then Alabama Governor Bibbs Graves, with the backing of the state legislature, signed a decree officially ending the leasing of convicts to mining companies by the state to work in coal mines. Sloss-Sheffield's flat top coal mine, located some 4 miles to the northwest of Blossburg, had been operating since 1901 on the Mary Lee coal seam that averaged 8 feet in thickness. The flat top mine ran parallel with the company's Bessie coal mine that was located a little over a mile to the southwest. Both mines and their surface facilities were located above the south bank of the Locust Fork of the Warrior River. Both the Flat Top and Bessie mines stretched out miles to the southeast, deep underground, making transit times for miners riding man trip cars an hour or more just to reach their assigned workstations deep inside the mines. The Bessie mine, unlike her sister mine at Flat Top, had not employed convict miners since its opening. The Bessie mine had a large employee mining camp named Maben located near the mine, which was named after J. Campbell Maben, then vice president of Sloss-Sheffield Steel and Iron Company. The Flat Top mine, having utilized convict miners since its opening, which on average numbered nearly 500 that were housed in a huge prison camp near the mine entrance. Sloss-Sheffield had never really established a full employee mining village at Flat Top, other than housing for the prison guards, mine supervisory, and equipment maintenance personnel. The state of Alabama, some years before, had taken over daily operations and supervisory functions of the prison while the convicts were still serving out their sentences. After the state ended the convict leasing on June 30th, 1928, it handed back control of the Flat Top mine to the Sloss-Sheffield Steel and Iron Company. Before the official turnover of the mine by the state, officials at Sloss were now faced with a real problem of establishing a proper mining village for miners and their families. The location of the Flat Top mine did not offer enough space to build a proper sized camp. Company officials decided to tackle several main issues confronting the operations of the Flat Top mine. To shorten the travel time into the underground sections of the mine that were actively being worked, a 1,000-foot long rock tunnel Manway slope was to be developed at a 30-degree down angle. The new Manway slope would be built in a long hollow just north of where the West Blossburg coke ovens were located at the end of the Sleepy Hollow rail spur line. This location was over 4 miles southeast from the Flat Top mine portal. Along the top of a generally flat nearby ridgeline, the company would build a new mining camp with complete facilities. Support facilities relating to the servicing of the Flat Top mine were to be built adjacent to the Southern Railway spur line. A new commissary, payroll office, bathhouse, medical dispensary, supply house, heating plant, cable hoist house, and electrical substation were to be constructed. A large filtration plant was also built to filter water being pumped topside from the mine, where, after being filtered and converted for domestic use, was sent to the mining camp. The company christened the new Manway entrance portal and camp Alden, named after Ruth Alden Thomas, the 10-year-old daughter of Howard J. Thomas, who was then the general superintendent of mines for Sloss-Sheffield. Work on the new camp and Manway portal commenced in late February 1928 by first sinking a slope to serve as the new Manway. The original batteries of beehive coke ovens that were still in place were eventually raised, with one battery being completely covered over during the clearing for the new mine facilities. By May 1928, Sloss had issued a contract for the construction and development of the new Alden mining camp, which was for the most part completed by October 1928. During this period, the Flat Top mine employed over 600 men, with the majority being miners working underground. Around 150 miners and their families relocated to the new Alden mining camp, where 160 new homes had been built. During this period, Sloss-Sheffield was still operating its nearby Blossburg No. 4 mine on the nickel plate seam. Company officials had proposed to construct a chute pipe system stretching down the entire length of the new Manway portal, whereby coal from the No. 4 mine would be sent down the chute to waiting mine carts and pulled 4.5 miles underground to the surface, where the coal would be loaded onto the company's Mary Lee Railroad and transported to its North Birmingham byproduct coke plant. As far as records indicate, this plan never took place. In 1938, with the Flat Top Mine workings extending further underground, a 475-foot deep concrete lined air intake and return ventilation shaft was built at Alden. Birmingham Mining Engineering Company, Salmon and Cowan, were contracted with the job of constructing the air shaft, which was completed in 1939. In 1955, U.S. Pipe and Foundry acquired the Sloss-Sheffield Steel and Iron Company. In 1969, Jim Walters Resources Corporation purchased the assets of the U.S. Pipe and Foundry, which included the Flat Top and Bessie coal mines. The Flat Top mine in Alden Manway, along with the air shaft, stayed in operation during this time. The commissary and pay office had long since been closed, along with the rail spur line being abandoned and pulled by Southern Railway. In 1979, with the underground workings extending out over 8 miles in distance and almost 1,000 feet in surface depth, combined with the rail line haulage ways being completely outdated, requiring enormous expenses in replacement, the decision was made to close underground mining operations at Flat Top permanently. The Alden Manway and air ventilation shaft were eventually sealed and covered over. The buildings at Alden somehow survived being torn down, and most remained intact. During this same period, Jim Walters had already been developing their new Nebo coal mine, which was located adjacent to the northernmost workings of the Flat Top mine, whose main workings on the Mary Lee seam ran deep underground beneath the old Nebo mines and the town of Cardiff. A new 1,600-foot rock slope tunnel at a 16-degree down angle was developed to reach the underground workings of the new Nebo mine. A deep vertical concrete lined air ventilation shaft was built north of the town of Cardiff to accommodate the mine and further underground expansion on the Mary Lee seam. The Brookside-Pratt Mining Company was formed and incorporated in December of 1911 by Messrs. James Bonnyman, P.J. Garland, and A.R. Long in Birmingham, Alabama. Mr. Bonnyman, who hailed from Kentucky coalfields, had arrived in Birmingham in 1906, took a position as treasurer and general manager of Birmingham Coal and Iron Company in 1909. With extensive knowledge of the coal industry, Mr. Bonnyman would also form the Bonnyman Norman Coal and Iron Company in December of 1911, which was established as a coal sales company to represent many mining companies in the Birmingham district. The company's name would later be changed to the Bonnyman Norman Coal Company. In 1917, Mr. Bonnyman would establish the Supreme Mining Company that would operate a large mine near Townley in Walker County for many years. Beginning in 1912, the newly formed Brookside-Pratt Mining Company would begin to develop new and existing coal mines on leases at Pinkney City in Blossburg, Cardiff, Brookside, Stockton, and later Coburg. Subsequently, some of these mines would be subleased by Brookside-Pratt, such as the Pinkney City operations, to companies such as the Blossburg Mining Company. Over the following years, as the Brookside-Pratt Mining Company rapidly expanded under Mr. Bonnyman's tenure, the company would acquire and operate coal mines outside of Jefferson County that were located in nearby Shelby and Walker counties. In 1922, Mr. James Bonnyman resigned as president of the Brookside-Pratt Mining Company to relocate with his family back north to Cincinnati, Ohio, to explore future opportunities in coal mining in that region. Mr. A.R. Long, who was then vice president and general manager of the company, assumed the duties as president. In addition to this change in upper management within the company, several long-term contracts have been signed with international coal sales agents, whereby Brookside-Pratt would ship a large percentage of their coal from their mines in Shelby, Jefferson, and Walker counties by rail and/or river barge down to the port cities of Mobile and New Orleans to be loaded onto cargo ships bound for South American ports where it was in high demand. These long-term contracts proved to be very profitable, allowing Brookside-Pratt to open up additional coal mines, mainly in the Carbon Hill and Nauvoo areas of Walker County. Between 1926 to 1927, the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company leased out their Blossburg mines to the Brookside-Pratt Mining Company for a percentage return in royalties based on extracted coal by the ton. The companies centered their main operations around the Blossburg E-mine that had showed high promise to expand underground mining further and deeper on the Pratt coal seam. With the mine being located on the existing Tutwiler branch of Southern Railway, a new contract was negotiated with regards to the rail transportation of coal from the Blossburg E mine to its destination by the ton. A new Montgomery coal washing plant was installed by 1929 to replace the older one that could process some 350 tons of coal, along with new jig washers and concentrating tables where various grades of coal would be sized and prepared to be sold to buyers. The coal mine facilities at the Blossburg E mine were entirely converted over to electrical power, with a new substation being built nearby that was installed by the Alabama Power Company from existing power lines coming from the Gorgas Steam Plant that was located on the Mulberry Fork of the Warrior River, some 17 miles to the northwest. Electric locomotives were installed to replace mule-drawn mine carts inside the mine, along with the latest fully electric coal cutting machines and mechanized coal conveyor loaders. Some 60 new homes were built and or reconditioned by the company in Bailey Hollow, paralleling Prudes Creek within the vicinity of the E-mine. During 1929, the Blossburg E-mine, while employing 79 men working both underground and at the surface facilities, were extracting on a monthly average some 22,000 tons of washed run-of-mine coal to be sold per contract agreements and on the open market. The E-mine had been classified by state mine inspectors as a gaseous mine requiring larger split intake ventilation fans to be installed as the mining went deeper and longer underground. By 1934, an auxiliary slope was developed south of the E Drift Mine entrance for the movement of material and equipment. One major situation that confronted the miners and engineers at the E mine was that large amounts of water during heavy rains were pouring down into the newer workings located some 80 feet below the older workings. In 1938, a large borehole was developed near the auxiliary slope down to the old works, where a brick dam was constructed to control the flow of water down into the newer works. Two small shafts were developed from the surface with a water pumping station built over the site, where two electrical turbine water sump pumps were installed inside the mine to draw water from the mine and pump it to the surface. The surface pumping station would then send the water down to Prude's Creek after going through an extensive filtration process. In September 1942, a massive surface fire broke out at the Blossburg E mine, completely destroying the coal washing plant, tipple, weight scale station, and the coal belt conveyor system, which resulted in $75,000 in damage, causing the mine to be shut down for several months as repairs took place. Fortunately, company officials had managed to purchase an intact coal washing plant from another mining company that had recently gone out of business. During the post World War II period between 1946 to 1951, the underground workings of the E mine had stretched out to the southeast, covering over 4 square miles, working the Pratt coal seam. As mining progressed further, the workings of the E mine buttressed up against the property boundary line of Republic Steel Corporation's inactive Warner coal mine to the east and the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company's Docena coal mine property boundary line to the southeast of Adamsville. From the E drift mine opening to the furthest workings was over 4 miles distance underground. By 1961, underground mining operations on the Pratt coal seam at the E mine had been exhausted, along with increasing costs to the company of operating an underground mine of that distance. Some 100 men that had been employed at the E mine were either laid off or offered positions elsewhere. Brookside-Pratt would eventually remove all of their equipment and dismantle the coal washing plant. Southern Railway would opt to keep the Tutwiler branch intact for a number of years as a good spot for the temporary storage of rail cars. As the Brookside-Pratt Mining Company closed out their long-term lease agreement with the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company, other smaller coal mining companies had secured leases in the Blossburg area with TCI back in the late 1940s to develop coal truck and strip mining operations along Bailey Hollow and south of Daisy City, paralleling present-day Forestdale Bend Road. The E mine was later converted into a truck mine with a modified tipple built in place of the rail tipple that had been earlier removed by Brookside-Pratt. The Franklin Coal Company and Davidson Coal Company would operate a significant number of truck mines along Bailey Hollow, as well as the Hustith, Reeds, Longs, and Bennett's coal mines. Underground and strip mining operations in these areas lasted into the late 1960s before they were finally closed down. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, the Corridor X project, which was developing the future Interstate 22 route between Birmingham and Memphis, Tennessee, would build the new highway pretty much directly over the site of the Blossburg E mine, along with several other coal mine sites in the area. In 1937, the Republic Steel Corporation opened up a series of coal truck mines that would operate on the Pratt coal seam in the Daisy City area, located some 2 miles southeast of Blossburg. The new mines were on a section of property that were part of the company's vast Warner coal mines, located about a mile northwest of the company's old drift mine works that are located parallel to present day Cherry Avenue. The property had never been developed for mining when the Warner mines were in operation due to the location being far removed from Southern Railway's main line with no spur line to reach the site. The official name of the new coal mines were the Warner Brookside Works, but were named the Daisy City Mines after their location. A total of 4 mines were opened on the Pratt seam just south of 5 Mile Creek, with 3 being drift mines and 1 developed as a small slope mine. Several surface facilities were erected, including the installation of an electrically operated cable hoist to service the slope mine. A central coal loading tipple designed for trucks was built on the site to service all of the Daisy City mines. When the mines were in operation, it is likely to be assumed that the extracted coal from the Daisy City mines were hauled by truck down along present day Cherry Avenue to a rail tipple that was built adjacent to Southern Railway's inactive spur line that once serviced Republic's Warner drift mines. Republic Steel operated their Daisy City coal mines up until 1941 when they were shut down. In the years following, several small coal mining companies operated at some of the mines at Daisy City, intermittently extracting whatever coal was left on the Pratt seam before the site was finally abandoned. In 1981, Alabama's Office of Surface Mining had received numerous complaints from locals residing around Daisy City about coal mine subsidences and open air shafts relating to many of the old mines being within proximity to their homes and on or near their property. State officials utilizing federal funds for mine reclamation came in and eventually sealed up the old mine openings, air shafts, and subsidences. During the 1990s, county officials would build a new section of the Bevins Brookside Road, branching off of Cherry Avenue at the site of the Daisy City coal mines, to the north with a new bridge built over 5 Mile Creek to connect with the existing road just north of the creek. Today, with the exceptions of a few depressions located in the grounds of the surrounding woods, there is nothing left of the old Daisy City coal mines. During the 1930s, the Works Progress Administration and Civil Works Administration, which were part of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal agencies that were created during the Great Depression, were funded by the federal government to not only give out of work men and women jobs, but to work on various building projects across the country that would improve the health, welfare, safety, and recreational activities of everyday Americans. Among the many projects that the WPA and CWA were tasked with completing was the sealing of abandoned coal mines, which was given high priority in Jefferson County as well as neighboring Walker County. This joint project relating to the sealing of abandoned coal mines focused on the ones that were located near tributaries consisting of creeks, branches, and rivers. The sealing of these coal mines was essential due to the water runoff coming out from the mines that produce sulfates and sulfuric acid that would flow down into the creeks and eventually empty into nearby rivers. These chemicals would also negatively affect the fish and wildlife. 5 Mile Creek, which had many smaller creeks and branches flowing into it, ran through or nearby these areas was still an essential source for fresh drinking water for the northern areas of the Birmingham district. Between 1934 to 1937, large teams of workers deployed over 16 square miles managed to seal up some 500 abandoned coal mines and air shafts in these areas. Even today, some of these sealed coal mines can still be seen while hiking through the woods of these areas. During the late 1950s and on into the 1960s, as large underground coal mining operations in the area had been winding down, with the exception of several coal truck mines still operating in the Bailey Hollow area, surface coal strip mining was taking place near the E mine site as well as the locations of the New Pratt, Tunnel, and Nebo mine sites. The towns of Blossburg and Pinkney City had changed significantly from the early rough and tumble days when there were multiple saloons with bar brawls and killings taking place on what must have seemed like a regular basis. Tough coal mine strikes, including the 1908 and 1920 periods, earned Blossburg a fierce reputation as a serious place when it came to the resilience of the coal miners. The area had become more relaxed, though resilient, with many coal miners, active and retired, settling down with their families, making the Blossburg area their home. There were still quite a few stores open doing brisk business with the locals in the area. The Alden Manway was still operating at the end of Sleepy Hollow in connection with the Flat Top mine now being operated by the U.S. Pipe and Foundry Company. Some retired miners with coal mining still in their veins worked in old coal drift mines that were on or near their property to make some extra money selling the bootleg coal to prospective buyers when needed. Occasionally, state revenue agents, along with the sheriff's department, would get tips about hidden moonshine stills operating in abandoned coal mines by bootleggers and conduct a raid in the Blossburg area. Some of these old coal mines have been sealed, but the ever crafty moonshiners would get them reopened to install their stills deep inside the mines. If the revenue agents were able to locate the underground stills, they would either demolish the equipment in vats or remove them. Most times, after this was done, dynamite charges would be placed inside the mine and set off, thereby sealing the mine from ever being used again for illegal purposes. This cat and mouse game between the revenue agents and the bootleggers would go on for years in the area. By the 1970s, not many surface buildings and facilities of the coal mines remained in the Blossburg area, with the exception of Alden at Sleepy Hollow. The old batteries of abandoned beehive coke ovens that were situated along present day First Avenue Southeast, or better known as County Road 112, located in Blossburg Hollow, would remain pretty much intact, though gradually disappearing in the overgrowth of vines and kudzu. In the late 1970s, an effort was made by the Lions Club of Adamsville to preserve the historical coke oven batteries that had originally been built by Major Tutwiler to be part of a planned recreational park for the area. The group was never able to get any traction to get the park built and save the coke oven batteries, which years later were raised and the land developed for commercial use. In 1991, a private developer built and opened up a public golf course in Blossburg on 160 acres that had been purchased some 11 years prior. The 18-hole fairways weave along, below, and in between the high ridge lines on much of the property once owned by Major Tutwiler. Many of the fairways that are laid out are parallel to and above many sealed coal drift mine locations operated at one time by Tutwiler, Brookside-Pratt Mining Company, and others. Between 1998 to 2002, the planned Corridor X project that was constructing what would later become Interstate 22 between Birmingham and Memphis, Tennessee, would develop the new route through sections of Blossburg that included Bailey Hollow and Sleepy Hollow. This development and added interchange would cover over the E and A coal mine locations, along with the leveling of the south side of the Deep Hollow, where some of the original West Pratt mines had been located. Add to which the realigning of Cherry Avenue would widen the grading and leveling over large sections of where the branch rail line and small rail yard was located. In 2015 to 2016, a new commercial site was developed adjacent to I-22 and north of Cherry Avenue, which raised the remaining coal drift mines that had been situated on the north side of the Deep Hollow. Every railroad tunnel has its own unique history, from the inception and planning and location to the construction and operational years of service of the railroads that maintained and ran trains through it. Oftentimes, events and circumstances that happened in and around the tunnel can affect the history of the area and the region. The Jefferson Tunnel was one such place that affected the history of coal mining and the organized union labor movement of the Birmingham district in the early 1900s. Along with the coal miners' strike of 1908, which the tunnel played an important part, it was beset with its fair share of accidents and deaths associated with the operations of the Georgia Pacific Railway and later Southern Railway. One such gruesome accident that took place in 1903 was when a railroad construction foreman, working with his crew in the area, left Cardiff late one night walking west along the tracks and into the tunnel when he was suddenly hit by an oncoming train traveling east through the tunnel, cutting him in half. Foul play and murder was suspected, but never proven. Another deadly accident that occurred was in February of 1937, happening around 7:30 p.m. at night when an extra loaded coal train that had been put on the line traveling east from Littleton back to Birmingham had slowed down when entering and proceeding through the northwest entrance to the Jefferson Tunnel. Unbeknownst to the men on that train was that a scheduled Southern Railways number 58 freight train operating from Columbus, Mississippi back to Birmingham was also approaching the Jefferson Tunnel from the northwest side. The number 58's train engineers, having no knowledge of an additional train on the line directly in front of them, proceeded at normal speed towards the tunnel. As the number 58 train rounded the last bend leading into the tunnel, they saw the rear of the other train's caboose and tried to slam on the brakes, which was unsuccessful. The number 58 train's locomotive slammed into the rear of the leading coal train's caboose. The impact of the crash lifted the caboose off the tracks, separating it from the train and disintegrating it in the process, while sending pieces of it sailing into the ceiling and sides of the Jefferson Tunnel. The number 58 locomotive engine caught fire, bursting into flames, sending it roaring out both sides of the tunnel. Survivors had managed to jump off the trains and escape to safety. A fireman riding in the caboose, unable to escape, was burned to death. The accident cleanup and repair caused the Jefferson Tunnel to be closed for weeks. Southern Railway had to use Frisco's line from Birmingham out to Bessie Junction in West Jefferson County to switch off onto their tracks past the Bessie and Flattop mines to get back to the Littleton Switch. In the 1950s, as the diesel locomotives would eventually replace coal-fired locomotives, freight trains started to get longer in what they could pull. The main line in the area on both sides of the Jefferson Tunnel had always been a problem for trains due to the sharp curves. Long freight trains would have to slow down to a crawl when approaching both ends of the tunnel so as not to derail and jump the tracks. Add to which the constant maintenance repairs of the interior of the tunnel to keep it open for traffic was causing losses in revenue. In 1980, Southern Railway and the Norfolk and Western Railway were merged together to form the Norfolk Southern Railway. By 1985, operating as the Southern Railway, the company had its engineers working alongside engineers from Jefferson County, Alabama, in developing a plan to realign the main line around the south side of the Jefferson Blossburg Tunnel, thereby bypassing it, along with the straightening out of a section of the line which was on the northwest side of the tunnel that had an existing sharp bend. This project would mean developing a cut through the existing ridgeline to the south of the tunnel and also rechanneling a section of 5 Mile Creek. This area of new development was on the combined properties of then Alabama Byproducts Corporation and the Jim Walters Resources Corporation, which had to be involved in the project to sell the needed land for the track and 5 Mile Creek realignment and bypass. However, it was worked out between all parties. The new bypass project was begun in the late 1980s and finished by around 1992. During this time period, Southern Railway donated 29 acres of cleared land on the south side of 5 Mile Creek to the city of Graysville for future plans to possibly be developed as a park for recreation. The Jefferson Tunnel was thereafter abandoned after being in service for over 100 years, along with the section of the line on the northwest side of the tunnel that had been bypassed. All of the rails on this section, including in the tunnel, were later removed by Southern Railway. Today, the Jefferson Tunnel sits on property leased and maintained by local hunting clubs in the area. No trespassing is strictly enforced on this area. Presently, the rail line is actively operated by the Norfolk Southern Railway. This is the Blossburg signal switch box, and just beyond it, down to the left, would be where the Blossburg branch line broke off from the main line, just below that ridge line. This is hiking down the Blossburg branch line, just south of the Jefferson Tunnel, where the branch line breaks off. That's 5 Mile Creek down to the left. And it's pretty impressive. The rail bed cut, when Georgia Pacific Railway built this, it must have taken them forever. Up below those overhangs there, you can actually see a 3-foot coal seam. Can't really tell it too much. Not enough light, but that's looking back to the north towards the Jefferson Tunnel. And a coal bed seam would just be underneath that overhang up to the left. This is one of many, many coal drift mine remains in the Blossburg area. Just about, they're all sealed or collapsed. Every now and then, when you're checking them out, you might see a little subsidence. little entrance that the water is made, like this one right here. And you might be able to just shimmy down into it to take a quick look. All the mines are pretty much they're sealed. This is one that was able to get into. You can see the coal seam, and just beyond back in the darkness, the mine is sealed. It's collapsed, but you could see the remains of the tramway rails, and there's some broken bottles down in there. It's it's impressive to see. This mine goes back to the late 1890s. This is an extension. This is the Blossburg branch line extending on south of 5 Mile Creek. Today, that's the water trail that leads to the 5 Mile Creek uh, water plant that's just on the south side of the Blossburg tunnel mines. So it's nice they made a road out of the rail bed. This right here is the New Pratt Coal Mines coal washing plant foundation. This was built by the Alabama Byproducts Company around 1926 when they bought Pratt Consolidated. It's just up in the woods, but it's impressive to see. And they got these little ladders you can go down into the basement. Down in the basement on a wall is an emblem of the contracting company that built the concrete foundation for the coal washing plant. J.A. Stevenson Builders, April 17th, 1926. This is, well, it was sealed by the WPA back in the 30s, and somebody had busted it open. And you can take a look in there, and it's a nice coal drift mine, but it's flooded. And you can see the coal seam. And this is another sealed coal drift mine that was blocked up by the WPA in the 1930s. There's quite a few of them in the area. Some of them, like this, are completely flooded and they have water coming out. The WPA seal is actually underneath the water. It's really hard to find. This was over in the Sleepy Hollow area of West Blossburg. The remains of two fairly intact powder houses that were situated up in the woods in different sections near the locations of several of the coal mines once operated in the area by Sloss-Sheffield. There was also the remains of a concrete box culvert on a section of the Sleepy Hollow rail spur line. Even in the winter months, the overgrowth in this area is pretty bad. This is down in Bailey Hollow. This is looking north on the actual Southern Railway Tutwiler branch line. This is looking north towards Tutwiler's Murray Number 4 coal mine. These are the actual beehive coke ovens to the Murray Number 4 mine that was built by Major Tutwiler. There's a battery of 100. There's 50 for each side. The Murray Number 4 mine would have been off to the left of the screen up in a draw, but the actual mine entrance is not even visible anymore. It was just completely covered over. But the coke ovens are in pretty good shape. They're just minus the doors. Uh, so, and just below here, it was unexpected to see uh, the actual rail sidings to the coke ovens that ran parallel to the branch line were still intact. The cross ties, the rails, they were all still in place under the water. It's hard to say if it's the entire intact rail siding is there, but it's pretty remarkable that the rails weren't taken up when the coal mine site was abandoned. But it's pretty neat to actually see that still intact underwater. The other side of the coke oven batteries look the same as this. So most of the video will be from the branch line side, uh, looking this way. As you move further down or further to the north, some of the actual stone walls to the coke ovens were still intact, which was pretty remarkable. Probably the only other ones to be seen like this that are in this kind of condition are the Mary Lee coke ovens over in Lewisburg. And this is looking north towards the E mine. This is looking north towards I-22. And just down below the little creek right there, that's Prude's Creek. And that's looking back to the south along the branch line. This is the coal washing concrete foundations to the Murray number 4 mine. They had a Robinson Ramsey coal washer there. So this is all that's left of the coal washing complex are the concrete foundations. And that's looking back to the south along the branch line. And here's a little bit further north, walking to the north. And this is the end of the coke oven battery right here. You can still see some of these stone walls. And you've got the stone walls right here. That's where the rail cars sat lower, parallel to the stone wall when the rail cars are loaded with the coke. So somewhere down below all that mud and underneath that water could be some more of the rail siding. And this is looking kind of at the end right here. You can see a lot of the coke and coal refuse right there. But it's a really peaceful, beautiful area to visit. A lot of deer. This visit was made long after hunting season had ended, just to make sure you wouldn't interfere with any hunters down there. But it's a beautiful, peaceful area of Bailey Hollow to visit, especially related to the historic Murray number 4 coal mine and the coke ovens. Thanks so much for watching. Hope everyone enjoyed this video on the historic coal mines and railroads of the Blossburg area.